Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or evening whenever you're watching this. Hopefully you are having a wonderful day, and hopefully you've been able to do some artwork today, no matter how little, maybe even a drawing, a little bit of painting, or maybe you made a value range, because we were talking about that on our last video. Simple 0 to 10 value range. That way you can understand how value works a little bit closer. Or maybe you've made your own color chart. You know, that's still part of artwork. All those little things that we can do to learn a little bit more about the complexities of painting in oil. So, in the last video we talked about the drawing of this and my idea of taking the fabric, this cloth that's part of the image, and really changing up the saturation and everything in it, maybe even the value range, to make it glow and feel like this completely different universe from everything else. And we looked at all of the yellows that I have, which are a whole bunch. And I'm going to move some of this around. I hate to I hate to waste the paint that I just put out, but I am almost 100% certain I will not be using this. That's the Radiant Yellow from, I believe it's the Radiant Yellow. Yeah, Radiant Yellow from Gamblin'. And then this one here is Indian Yellow, which is a transparent yellow. I'm pretty sure I won't be using that as well because it's very orange. I don't really maybe I don't want that orange color. When we get into it, maybe I'll change my idea. Then we have Bismuth Yellow, Hansa Yellow, and Cadmium Yellow Light, and I can't tell you the difference between each one. They're so slight that it's almost unnecessary. And what I'm going to do is just mix all of them together. They do have different working properties between them. One is opaque and semi-transparent. Well, there's two that are semi-transparent and one that's opaque. But they're so close together that I just wanted to mix them together and use those yellows. I probably won't use all of that yellow. And oh my goodness, I haven't had a yellow this intense on my palette for a very long time. The most intense yellow that I've been working with has been the yellow ochre that I have up there with the Zorn palette, or the alternate to the Zorn palette I've been using for a while. And so it's going to be interesting playing with these colors, especially how intensely they can adjust colors that I mix it with. You know, their mixing strength is going to be fun as well to deal with. And I want to put out some more white. Always the biggest tube is white. My goodness. Now, what I was thinking about right before I started this video, was, you know, how am I going to start this painting? How am I going to begin? Am I going to start with the fabric first, with those crazy yellows, or am I going to start with the background and the figure? And I'm pretty sure I'm going to start with the background and the figure. Background to be specific, and I want to make sure that everything I do in the background and with the figure is of this reddish variety, like earth tone reddish variety, really, and maybe even to some grayish red as well. So I want to make sure that the entirety of that kind of takes up those tones, and I'm going to try and stay away from as much yellow as possible. If I dip into any yellow, it'll just be the yellow ochre, and I want to keep it separated, keep all that separated. And then once I've established a lot of that, then and only then will I go into what I'm going to establish with the fabric. And as far as establishing this background, it doesn't need to be detailed established. I can go back and forth. I'm going to be using different brushes. So we'll have brushes for background and figure, and brushes for the fabric itself, the yellows. and don't mix the two. You know, don't cross those streams. Always keep them separated. So that's what I'm gonna do with this, and I'm not gonna get super detailed in the background and the figure yet. It's just gonna be establishing those values, those colors, those hues, the saturation, and then establishing the yellows. So that's what I'll be working on here. I'd like to finish this painting today, but as you know me, I'm a daily painter. Daily life always comes in, and we'll get as far as we can. We'll continually make progress every day, even if it's as little as 30 minutes or 15 or 20 minutes every single day. But let's get going. I'm gonna speed this up, and I'll see you on the other end. Okay, I'm back again. I'm not fully done with this. I was just thinking about an aspect of painting that we don't talk about very often. At least I have never heard a lot of individuals or teachers talk about this. And it's something I'm feeling right now that I want to bring to your attention, because it may be able to help you within your artistic process. Excuse me. And that is your mood with painting, and noticing where you're at in every given day that you're actually working on your artwork. And I'm noticing something about myself right now where I'm a little bit stressed today because of things I have going on and lots of things that I need to get to today. So I'm thinking about, you know, life outside of art making, okay? Like work stuff, gallery stuff, teaching things, all the stuff that I have going on. And what it's resulting in is me working too fast. I have a lot of things I need to get to today, so I want to get through this painting, so I'm throwing down the paint really fast. And as I look at what I've done, a lot of my colors and things are pretty close, except for up here. It's way too intense compared to here within the legs. The top of the torso, the arm, and everything has some intensity in the hues that is a bit too much. But you know, I've completely obliterated with the drawing, which is fine. I'll have to find that again. It's something that we do every time we paint. But I've really gotten rid of it a bit too much, and it's going to be harder for me to find where that drawing was now because I was moving so fast. And now moving fast isn't the problem, because sometimes we can move fast depending on what we're working on and still come out with a good painting. I think the issue is, or what I want to point out, which is the most important thing, is recognizing your mental space within your day, within your painting process, and even before. There's a really funny quote from Richard Schmid's Alla Prima book, and he talks about, you know, getting to painting, or at least beginning to paint. And he brings up a really practical understanding of, you know, life and art intersect in a lot of ways, and we cannot remove life from art. And he says specifically, you know, if you want to get to this painting and all this stuff is happening, and I think he says specifically, like the cat just puked up on the carpet, it's probably not the best time to start a painting. No, you got to go clean up the cat puke. And I thought that was, you know, it was really poignant for, well, me especially, because we have cats and I love cats. But, recognizing, is this the best time to start a painting? And for me, yes, this is the best time for me to start a painting. But also, what is my mood right now? And sometimes you only figure it out as you've gotten into the painting, and you're realizing, oh, you know what? I'm really stressed right now. And I'm moving way too fast. I need to take some breaths, breathe for a couple minutes and just calm down and realize that if I can move through this painting with some more accuracy and a little bit of slowness, a little bit slower, I can actually move faster because I won't have a lot of corrections to do. And that's just one aspect of life and painting intersecting. It could be all kinds of things. Maybe you just have a super busy day. That seems to be the one thing that kind of gets in the way. Not really get in the way, but that's one thing that we have to think about before doing our artwork every day. Do we have the time? Have we made the time? Have we spent too much time, watching TV or videos on YouTube or things like that? And has it taken up the time that we could have used to start painting or drawing or doing something? And do we have that time remaining? And if we do, we can paint. And then what is our mood for the moment? Do I need to sit and kind of contemplate what I plan on doing in the painting before I get started? Do I need to calm myself? If you just had a fight with your boyfriend or girlfriend or significant other, and you need to get to this painting today, or you want to work on a painting, maybe that moment is not the best moment. Maybe the best thing to do is to deal with the personal issues that you have for the moment, and then say, you know what, I'm going to give myself an hour, a couple hours to calm down, to reset, and then get to painting. So this is something that I don't hear many people talking about. Many creators don't want to talk about it because we're getting into psychological terminology. But you cannot separate the psychological from the art that you're creating. It will always affect it, and it should affect it. If we're not bringing some of ourselves into our work, some kind of emotional idea, and I'm not saying we have to always do this, like a painting is not worth it unless we have some feeling for it. Sometimes painting is just painting. You're working on a commission that you don't care too much about, and you need to get it finished, right? Just to make the money to pay the bills, things like that. And that has happened. But the I don't feel like it is an emotional connection with what we're doing right now, or I'm not so interested in this is an emotional connection with the art. And we will always have some kind of emotional connection. And talking about that and learning how to navigate those emotions is not very easy to do because we're all so different. We're all very different individuals, which is fantastic because if we were all the same, we would all make the same artwork, and that would just be a boring world, right? So through those emotions is what allows us to be ourselves and to have our own voice within our paintings. But it's also something that we need to navigate. And the very first thing that I think you can do with that is just bringing attention to your feelings and your emotions. And I know there's probably maybe people out there that don't want to deal with that. That maybe it's a hard subject to talk about. and I don't want to talk about my emotions. I just want to get this painting done, Chris. Or maybe you say, you know what? Bringing emotions into your artwork is counterintuitive. I don't need emotions to do my artwork. And that's fine too. How you decide or how you determine for yourself to do your artwork is up to you. But right now, if you're so inclined, maybe you're wanting to work on a painting at the moment, but you're watching me paint. Maybe I've motivated you to work on a painting, and that would be fantastic, absolutely fantastic. At the end of the day, if all I do is get you to get off of this video and work on your own painting, that would be fantastic. Let's do that. But before you do that, think about, how do I feel right now? Is this the best time to start a painting? Do I feel pretty good? Is there a few things that I need to deal with, that I need to write down in a journal, or talk about, or think about before I get to this painting? Yeah. So for me, it's super helpful to stop for a second, turn on my mic, which I hope I turned it on. I'm pretty sure I turned it on. Turn on my mic, recognize what I'm feeling, and pause and slow down and talk in a calm manner to you about what I'm feeling, and take my time with this painting. Okay, hopefully that's helpful. I'm going to go back to speeding up the video, and I'll see you on the other end. Okay, I'm back, and boy, holy cow. There's so much that I've learned within this. It's absolutely fantastic. First off, there are differences, definitely differences within these paints here, okay? So these were the three that I mixed together, you know, all those super bright yellows. So cadmium yellow light is still warmer, just slightly warmer than bismuth yellow and Hansa yellow light. But because it's opaque, and I don't think bismuth yellow is opaque. I'm not sure. It doesn't really say on the back of it. This is bismuth yellow from M. Graham. The other two are from Gamblin. But I definitely feel the opaqueness, the thickness of the cadmium yellow light and its ability to cover anything below it. But I still have to really pull that paint up and really chunk it down there in order for it to cover even the gray behind it. There seems to be a lot of transparency in all the yellows, definitely. Even the cadmium yellow light, which is opaque. Okay, so dealing with that transparency and its ability to cover what's behind it, I think is definitely one thing that I realized, and the difference in temperature, warm and then cooler. You know, the cadmium yellow light is definitely warmer than the Hansa yellow light and the bismuth yellow. But what I found even more fascinating is on some of these mixtures, because I started out, you may have noticed, I started out trying to do some mixtures within these yellows and figuring out what my shadow values would look like, right? So right out the tube would be my lightest light, my highest value range for the yellow. And then I went and I mixed with yellow ochre to kind of bring it down so that it was a bit more neutralized and darker. I tried with my burnt sienna, and I tried with the Payne's Gray. Now the Payne's Gray goes to green. Payne's Gray and the yellow, you get this greenish color right away. Let's see, I'll show you this. So very bright green there. So I am darker. I did darken it up, but I go to a green, and I don't exactly want a green. So I dipped into my burnt sienna, which that was way too much, just really destroyed that mixture. Let me go back into the Payne's Gray and yellow. And now I have a darker color, so lower value, but warmer as well. And on some of them, I went even more with that Payne's Gray. So it's kind of getting into green, but it's like a brownish green color, okay? And I like that better. And that's what I was using mostly for the darker values in this fabric. Now it's not crazy green, but it was interesting kind of taking it into the greenish color and then warming it up and coming up with this mixture. That was really interesting to see, like the preference between the two. And of course, this isn't going off of what I see, this is what I feel. Like I'm just looking at the fabric for value, but I feel that this cooler mixture, I like that better than a much warmer mixture for the darker values. You see how much warmer that is than the greenish colors over here. And if I put it down here, you can see how warm that is. So I liked not only the way it looked within itself, but also how it separates itself, this fabric, from the reddish warmth of the figure and the background. So really making those separations. And that was the purpose of what I'm doing here, is like have that different universe of fabric and different universe of figure and background. Now, the next thing that I thought was really, really, really interesting, and I liked making these mixtures, is I would make let me actually cool this off a bit. So this mixture here, right? So a greenish, darker value, okay? But then let's add a little bit more yellow to that, and then white. Adding white to it to bring the value back up. What's interesting about that is I would never be able to reach the intensity of the yellow right out of the tube with adding white to this. So I get lighter, but I go towards a grayish color. And that works really well for a lot of kind of half tones in this fabric. It's in shadow, but there's also some reflected light on it. And it provided that extra difference between the lightest light area and these lighter areas that are pretty close to it. For example, so this super bright yellow here has a shadow next to it. That the value is pretty close. So if I do this, even bring them a little bit closer, we can still, or at least I feel like I can still understand this slightly neutralized yellow and slightly darker yellow as a cast shadow or a shadow on this fabric, or at least fabric in less light than that lighter area. But it still has this connection of fabric itself. A lot of times when we do like an extreme light on something, like an extreme light on a figure, like a hand or a face or something, it almost looks like a stripe is on there, like it's separated from the object itself, like it's painted on. But with this value difference, yet temperature, saturation difference, it really helps kind of bring all that together. So I thought that was fantastic, like bringing it into a shadow area, greenish, darker color, and then bringing it back out with the white really opened up the ability for me to move these yellows in different ways. I think this would be perfect, kind of right here where it's moving out of shadow and into a lighter area. So having some of that intensity in there of the yellow right out of the tube, but then also that less intense, less saturated yellow. A lot of fun to paint. I want to put some more here while I'm talking. Or if I can talk while I'm doing this. A lot of times I can't. But the reason why I started, why I stopped the fast forward or the time lapse and I'm back to this is because I feel like this is a good stopping point. This is a good stopping point, Chris. You can stop painting now, Chris. Hey, stop painting. Stop doing that. Yeah, I feel like this is a good stopping point. There's a lot to do within this fabric. I'm just having a lot of fun looking at the different value ranges within here, trying to pick out the best intense or less intense color, the differences between saturation and temperature within that to put down. And that's all it is, value, temperature, intensity. I don't have to worry about hue. It's all like a green hue, or I'm sorry, a yellow hue. But removing that and then focusing on value number 1, temperature number 2, and intensity number 3. And really kind of working this paint so that it can say fabric and it folds throughout. Oh, it's so fun. I don't want to stop. I want to keep painting. And I think what I'm trying to achieve is working out in a lot of ways. It looks otherworldly in some cases. There's a lot within the legs here and the arm and the background that I want to figure out. Not really figure out, but get specific with. and render a bit closer to what I'm seeing on from the photo, especially when we get right up against this fabric. And I want to figure that out to a point where it does look completely different. Like they're both two different universes, and it doesn't look like, I want it to be apparent that this was a choice made by me, the artist, to bring in this intense yellow that wasn't something that's part of life. And it's hard to do because we can imagine that this is like a yellow raincoat or something. And then when I think about that, I can't unsee it, you know? I can't unthink about that again. But how do I make that separation? Within, I mean, Uribe was a bit more intelligent than I about this, and he made a person's face that yellow. And we know that a person's face doesn't get that yellow, especially in this lighting condition. It's almost like there's a completely different light only on the face. And that's what I'm trying to achieve here, but it's starting to look like, the more I think about it, the more it looks like a local color of this fabric is something like like I said, a raincoat or something like that. It's not like a completely different light, an alien light only on this fabric. So it's a bit more challenging. The one thing that I need to do before I stop is I want to bring this value down here. This is something that Greg Manchess really brought to my attention that I have to remember more often than not. Try and think about more often than not. When I look at this photo, it's not very apparent right away. But if you look very closely, you'll see that the values up here, where the fabric is closer to the light source, are a lot higher in value, slightly higher than value, than as they move down. And I can push that a bit by darkening up these values down here a bit. So you get that fall off of light, that natural fall of light, intense, less intense. And it's those little subtle things that you can pick up on that I think really take a painting from just painting into something so much more. And edges, oh my goodness, edges on this, there's a lot of different edge quality throughout this fabric. Figuring out, because I'm using a sharp brush, flat brush right now. I'm not saying I'm having fun with that, but figuring out, I was about to say I'm having fun with this, I kind of am, where I have this flat brush, but how do I make soft edges with a flat brush? And a lot of times what you run into what I'm doing in order to make that happen is I'm keeping sharp-edged color combinations right next to each other, but changing the value up as they sit next to each other. Let me see, what does that look like? Let me do it on my palette, like so you can see what I'm talking about a little bit more closely. So this is the lightest value I have, and then next lightest value right next to it, next lightest value right next to that, and then we go further down right next to that, further down next to that. You can see you can get this kind of drop off, this change in value structure without doing a very soft blend. You don't need to do, get out a blending brush and start blending things. You can put values next to each other and make that happen through the very slight changes in those values. And of course, I'm doing this on a much smaller scale within this fabric. See, like right here, this is a very sharp edge when it should turn. And that's because it's light against dark. So let's break that up into different value ranges. And we don't want to do it like perfectly vertical. We want to do it in an organic way. Got a bit too dark there, and it's really subtle. It's very subtle. See how that softened that edge a lot? So it looks like it transitions into a shadow area. And most of what I'm doing on this fabric is that. Here's my lightest light, here's my darkest dark. Here's a light area, a shadow area. Let's bring that value down. And then think about, well, okay, how am I gonna bring that value down? I'm gonna do it with a Payne's Gray that will cool it off, or am I going to do it with a burnt sienna plus Payne's Gray? We'll cool it off a bit, keep it somewhat warm. And what's nice about putting enough paint down, many artists that I'm teaching a few artists right now, and there's and for me too, like for years and years, I've put down just a tiny bit of paint, not a lot of paint on my canvas to work with. And what that's resulted in is having to continually mix and put down more and more color to change things on the canvas. Where if you put down enough color, or a lot of color in a lot of instances, a lot of paint, a lot of thick paint, you can clean off your brush like I do with my paper towel. You can see there, I just wipe it off. And get as much paint out of your brush as possible, and then just use what's already on the canvas and move that around. And a lot of times that is so much easier because you've established the correct values already on your canvas, you've established the correct color, and all you need to do is adjust an edge. Let me use what's already there. If you have to mix up paint every single time, there's chances for error. There's chances for you to mix up the incorrect color, the incorrect value, the incorrect saturation. But when you can use what's there over and over, because it's thick enough, makes your life a lot easier. Oh, that was the wrong value. I was confident, but it didn't work. Yeah, I could sit here quietly and paint while you're watching. But honestly, for the most part, those kind of videos I barely watch. I want to hear what the artist is thinking about and the things that are going on in their head rather than just watching someone paint. But that's about it. That's all I'm doing. It's a lot of working with value and just determining temperature and saturation changes to get the value the way I want. Okay, this is a good stopping point on this. I'm going to continue it tomorrow on tomorrow's session of my daily art time. And hopefully, I think I'm pretty far along where I think tomorrow I should be able to finish this painting up. As long as I have enough time tomorrow. I mean, life comes in like we were talking about before. Figuring out how to deal with life and other things. And yeah, Thank you so much for watching. If you want to purchase my artwork, go to my website, chrisbevan.com. It's linked in the description. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.